All right. In this mini lecture, we're going to be looking at Chapter 7, Implementing Strategies, Management and Marketing Issues. You can pause the screen and read the learning objectives at this time if you would like to. First, let's start by looking at annual objectives. Remember that annual objectives are those that we want to achieve within the next year. They help to allocate resources, evaluate managers, achieve long-term goals, establish organizational, divisional, and department priorities, and help to keep the strategic plan on track. Here's an example of annual objectives. So as you can see, the long-term company objectives are set. These are anything that is over 1 year, usually 3 to 5 years. And then we set our annual objectives, which are the objectives we would like to achieve within the next year based on what our long-term objectives are. And you can see each division has different annual objectives. And then you can even go further down the line to see how those annual objectives are at play within the various functions or departments within the company. We also need to look at our resources. So in a business, we have 4 types of resources: financial, physical, human, and technological. And as part of the strategic management process, we need to allocate resources so that we can execute our strategy. All right, we're also going to look at our organizational structure. So our organizational structure largely dictates how our objectives and policies will be established and how resources will be allocated. So let's look at the first type of structure, is a functional structure. A functional structure groups tasks and activities by different business functions such as operations, marketing, finance, etc. So you can see here, this is Southwest Airlines functional strategy. You have your chairman, CEO, and president, and then you have your chief operating officer, your chief financial officer, regulatory officer, commercial officer. And so this is separated out by functional areas. A divisional structure is where functional activities are performed both centrally and in each separate division. And these can be organized by different geographic regions, products or services, customers, or processes. So this is Hershey's Foods divisional by region organizational chart. And so you can see that here we have, it's actually, you have your different functional areas, and then it's also separated out by geographic region: Americas, Middle East and Africa, United States. A strategic business unit groups similar divisions into units and delegates authority and responsibility for each unit to the senior executive who reports to the chief executive officer. And so you can see here that with LG, they have 2 major strategic business units. So they would have a CEO that oversees both strategic business units, but then they would also have somebody in charge of the electronics and somebody in charge of appliances. And so basically they separate as 2 separate divisions, but are still part of the same company. There's also a matrix structure. This is the most complex of all designs because it has both vertical and horizontal flows of authority and communication. And so in order for this to be effective, you need to have participative planning, training, mutual understanding of roles and responsibilities, good communication, and trust and confidence. And so this is an example of what a matrix structure would look like. This isn't the best example I've ever seen, but it'll do the job. So you can see the different functional areas here, and then you might have different projects or even product lines over here, and so they all kind of have to work together. Procter & Gamble is really popular for using this structure. Right. Sometimes companies need to restructure, and so this involves reducing the size of your workforce or the number of your divisions or units. You might even sell off some of your brands or assets, with ultimately the goal of reducing costs. And there's also re-engineering. Re-engineering does not imply any job losses or layoffs. Basically, we're just redesigning, reconfiguring, changing processes. We're trying to improve our costs, improve quality service, or achieve some speed efficiencies. However, when you do any of the type of restructuring or re-engineering, this is change, and as humans, we don't really like change. And so we have to be able to manage this change, and you might get resistance to change. And that could be a real big threat to a successful strategy implementation. And so you have to be able to manage that change and the resistance to change. Right. We also need to look at how human resources impacts strategic implementation. So there's 7 major human resources issues that I discussed in this text. One is linking performance and pay to our strategy, balancing work life and home life, developing a diverse workforce, hiring, using caution in hiring rivals employees, creating a strategy supportive culture, monitoring employees' social media, and developing a corporate wellness program. So we'll just talk about each of them real quick. We have to decide, I think this is one of the most important, on how we're going to link pay and performance to our strategies. So these are things like, are we going to give salary increases, promotions? Do we use merit pay? Do we use bonuses? What is going to be the best way to motivate our employees and to help us to achieve our goals and our strategies? There's also a huge demand for work-life balance, and I think that we're going to see this changing now that we've gone through the pandemic and people have worked from home. But a lot of companies, even before the pandemic, would have elder care assistance or even child care, flexible scheduling, job sharing where 2 people share a job and each work part-time, adoption benefits, helplines, of any type of thing that can help you to balance your work and your home life. One of the really big topics right now is how do we develop a diverse workforce? It's important to have a diverse workforce, to have different insights and opinions and perspectives. We want to show that we're committed to non-discrimination. We also want to have a workforce that mirrors our customer base, that can help attract customers, build customer loyalty, and design products and services that meet our customers' needs and wants. Having a diverse workforce can help to protect against discrimination lawsuits. Um, Having more diverse people in your workforce can also increase your pool of qualified applicants. And a diverse workforce strengthens a firm's social responsibility and ethical positions. So there are no drawbacks to having diversity, and diversity really means so many things. It's so much more than women and underrepresented populations. It's people with different views and perspectives and backgrounds all contribute to the diversity of our workforce. All right. One of the topics that your book talks about is monitoring employees' social media. Some people say that companies should monitor employees' social media activities, and some people say no, that's unethical. You can research more of that and develop your opinions on that one. And then corporate wellness programs. A lot of companies have not only provide employee health insurance benefits, but also are trying to make their employees healthier in terms of both physical, emotional, and mental health. And so a lot of companies will have discounts on insurance premiums for if you exercise X number of times a month at your gym. And some might even charge a premium for or might impose a surcharge on premiums for those who don't partake in their wellness initiatives. So, for example, at the University of Minnesota, if as part of our wellness incentives, if we earn so many wellness points throughout the year, we get a reduced rate on our health insurance. So, all right. So we also need to look at some strategic marketing issues. Um, So one is how do we make advertisements more interactive and effective? How do we market to our desired customers? How do we take advantage of social media? How do we distribute our products or services? How do we What types of advertising should we use? Should we do light, heavy, or no advertising? Do we want to use one supplier or multiple suppliers? How do we want to price our products and services? What's our warranty look like? Do we want to extend a product line or do we want to create a whole new product line? So when we're looking at marketing, what we're really trying to do is trying to identify who is most likely to use our products and services. And so we look at our market segmentation. So who are our consumers that are going to use our products and services? Sometimes we call them our target market, and within our target market, we might have different segments. So for example, let's say that I am a company that sells flowers. I might have my target market is anybody who likes to buy flowers for their home. All right. So I would probably say, well, most likely this is probably women who live in X places and make this much money per year. Then I would say, okay, how do I target these people? And I would say, okay, these are the ways that I can communicate with this population. And then I also have to position myself to make sure that I'm positioned in a positive way in the minds of my consumers. So let's take a look at some examples. So when we're positioning ourselves, and I think many of you have probably heard of the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. I have to think about what is the product I'm selling? How is it priced? Am I low price? Am I a prestige price? So am I a high-end product? So I price it accordingly. How do I distribute it? Do I distribute it through retailers? Is it online? How is my distribution? And how do I promote it? So what types of advertising do I use? And I base all of this on who my target market is. So we can also look at a perceptual map that can help us to position ourselves. And so this is one for insurance providers. And so you pick 2 factors, so price and customer service here. And you can see where there are gaps or how you're perceived. So the general is going to be low price, but really not a lot of customer service. Versus State Farm, who's going to be a little higher price, but is going to have excellent customer service. Another use of this is you can actually see if there's any gaps here. So, Geico seems to have a little bit of a advantage here because they're a lower price. Here you can see, but they have a little bit better service than average, so that can lead to a competitive advantage. Here's one for hotels. Again, we look at customer satisfaction and price. And again, you can see, there aren't a ton of luxury hotels. Maybe that's a place to be. So that's a perceptual map. And ultimately, when we're looking at marketing and we're looking at our management and implementing our strategy, we're really looking at how do we gain and sustain our competitive advantage. So establishing a clear vision and mission, formulating strategies, collecting, analyzing, prioritizing data, establishing a plan, implementing those strategies, looking at our organizational structure, our resources, how we motivate, how do we attract customers, how do we manage our finances, and then evaluating and monitoring our results. So adapting to change and taking corrective actions as needed. These can all help to lead to a competitive advantage.